Welcome back to A Different Opinion, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, we've got an interesting one. I mean, I know everyone's talking about all the cultural things at the moment with the Roe v. Wade and all those type of things, and also the January 6th hearings, blah blah blah. But a more important one to me is NATO reaching a deal where Turkey actually agreed to let Finland and Sweden into NATO, which is massive. I mean, it really halts Russia big time, especially with they're nearly surrounded now by NATO. Yeah, it's good to see because it'll really slow them down, make them think twice. Obviously, it's not set in stone yet. They still have to pass it through. Sometimes it can take up to a year, but I know how much they're rushing things in at the moment, that they'll get it done pretty quick. So I'll jump into it. This one here from CNBC. NATO reaches a deal with Turkey to admit Sweden and Finland, Secretary General says. This news just broke yesterday. Washington, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said Tuesday that the world's most powerful military alliance reached a deal to admit Sweden and Finland after resolving the concerns of the holdout from Turkey. The three countries' foreign ministers signed a memorandum to confirm that Turkey will back Sweden and Finland's NATO bids during a summit in Madrid this week. Our joint memorandum underscores the commitment of Finland, Sweden, and Turkey to extend their full support against the threats to each other's security. Us becoming NATO allies will further strengthen this commitment. So obviously it is squashing the worries that Turkey had about them allowing, certain troops, who they call terrorists into their country, especially Sweden. And now obviously Sweden and Finland have made an agreement. They also stopped putting, blockades on certain weapons that they can sell to Turkey. So now they've just fully opened everything up and given Turkey what they wanted, which Turkey knew they would get. So they're very smart. They definitely won that part of the battle, in my opinion. The push to add Sweden and Finland to NATO comes as Russia's assault on Ukraine stokes fears in the country and the region. Previously, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said he would not approve the application, citing their support for the Kurdish organization, which Turkey considers a security threat. So that's the, Kurdish troops that rose up against the Turks, and then obviously Sweden and they believe Finland have allowed some of the people which have been misplaced into their countries. And they obviously still think that, obviously they're still part of the terrorist organization. So all 30 NATO members must approve. Last week, Stoltenberg told reporters that he was working to add Finland and Sweden to NATO as soon as possible. He'll make them feel safer, NATO stronger, and the Euro-Atlantic area more secure. We're now working actively on the next steps in the accession process of both Finland and Sweden and addressing Turkey's security concerns, including the fight against terrorism. So good to see. I mean, it really does make a big difference. I mean, if you look on the map here, so these are all the countries in there. These are the years that they joined on the right here. So Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. So here's the sea, obviously. That's Finland there, just above Estonia, on the border of Russia. And there's Sweden just to the west of it, if you aren't watching the screen, you're just listening. So Russia's nearly covered, the whole west is nearly covered, apart from Belarus and all that. And also the southern, Turkey's close there into southern, Romania's to the left. So, I mean, really, Russia's only got one option, really, and that is, what they do now with Ukraine, obviously, then Belarus, all that, which, usually they're buddy-buddy with. So they can't go much further to the west. They can't go really east because China's there. So in reality, they're quite stuck, unless they go south down to Iran. But I don't really see Iran and Russia really working together unless they come together for the common enemy, which is obviously, the devil Americans, as they would probably call it. So you can see here, Belarus just to the left of Russia, then Ukraine's right there, then Georgia to the south, and then Iran more to the south as well. So they are pretty well covered, which is obviously good to see because I do not want them to expand any more than they've already expanded at the moment. I'll jump at this one here. This one's from Crikey. I mean, it is a very opinionated, news agency here in Australia. Pretty annoying, to be honest. But sometimes, they do give a couple of good information in there. The war has already triggered a big increase in NATO's forces in the east. The allies are expected to agree at the summit to increase the strength of the alliance rapid reaction force nearly by eightfold, from 40,000 to 300,000 troops by next year. So that's 300,000 troops on the ready, in Europe to go. The troops will be based in their home nations, but dedicated to specific countries on NATO's eastern flank, where the alliance plans to build up stocks of equipment and ammunition. Stoltenberg said NATO was undertaking the biggest overhaul of our collective defense since the end of the Cold War. The leaders also set to publish NATO's new strategic concept. It wants a decade set of priorities. So obviously, they're just preparing for the worst. If Russia does want to go west, if China wants to go west, all that type of stuff, even if Iran's there as well, they have all this ready to go. And like you see here with the war with Ukraine and Russia, it is literally a war of attrition, isn't it? I mean, there's nearly too many people at this moment, unless if you're going to nuke someone, there's just too many people to actually shoot and kill now because it's so spread out. Just the amount of millions of people per country, especially, Russia, Ukraine, all that stuff, even America, hundreds of millions of people, which is insane. So it's obviously too much, and there's not enough ammunition. Most countries don't have that ammo. So smart for them to drop a lot of ammunition and supplies close to the Eastern Front type of thing. And hopefully it'll literally, make Russia think twice now. Hopefully by the end of this year, this war will be over. Hopefully then Ukraine, obviously they're trying to force Ukraine into Europe at the moment, to the EU. So we'll see how that goes, if they're going to really rush it that much to get them in, which I think they're going to. And then hopefully it doesn't become, very, very hot between Russia, America, NATO, and then hopefully there's no World War III, because I know I'm just kind of waiting for China. They're just waiting for the right time to strike at Taiwan. They're obviously doing a lot of, military drills, a lot of planes going into their areas, and, very worrisome, especially if you are Taiwanese. You'd be very worried. Even Japan as well, they're very close to there. They're worried as well, in my opinion, even though they have a very good military. But yeah, years of crippling, they're not as strong as they used to be. So I don't think they'll just be able to go and do what they did to China last time. They're obviously the smaller brother now. But yeah, it's very interesting as well. And then there's obviously more and more stories as well going on about Biden is not handling Iran at the moment. So it's from the Israel National News. The CNN report indicated that one of President Biden's objectives on his upcoming trip to Israel and Saudi Arabia is to assure allies in the region that he has a concrete plan to constrain Iran as they prepare for a very possible nuclear attack against the aforementioned nations. So worrying. Just really don't know why Iran always wants to do some sort of nuclear attacks. Thus far, the current administration in Washington has attempted to resuscitate the failed JCPOA Iran nuclear deal that was originally initiated by former President Barack Obama, changed by Trump. Yet this plan has not yet yielded any tangible results. Rather than warning Iran of the significant consequences it faces should it decide to forge ahead with its pernicious military plans, the US administration has unsuccessfully attempted to offer Iran lucrative monetary incentives for them to squash their extensive nuclear enrichment program. This too has been an abysmal failure in every aspect. Another failure by the Biden administration. What a surprise. One US official said the situation of Iran is getting very hot, that it is a huge part of why we need to do this trip. Our allies want to know we are serious about dealing with this. And then also, everyone's like, oh, it's about trying to get cheaper fuel, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it is, but then also Iran is just there ready to go pretty much 24/7, which is insane. They just need to stop. And I mean, there's so many people in that country that are very good people, who just want to live a peaceful life. They don't want to be part of wars and wars and wars. And you kind of see that with the newer people, like the newer generation coming through in Iran. They're all about, we don't want to go and do military service. We don't want to go and give up 2 years of our life, whatever the minimum military service is, just for another war. So I think the country is really over it. I think a lot of those countries are over it, with the amounts of 100-year wars, all that type of stuff constantly going out. And it's just a waste of human life. A congressional aide familiar with the deliberations said a lot of our partners feel strongly that the US-Iran policy is making them inherently less safe. And when you tie that policy to the Afghanistan withdrawal, restrictive arms sales, the lukewarm embrace of the Abraham Accords, the advertised pivot to the Indo-Pacific. We have a lot of partners willing to take matters into their own hands. Biden, handle it, please. Far out. Like, we do not want something going off in the Middle East again. I mean, the US has gotten so far with, stopping things from the previous president and his, office. And to do this, it's destroyed so many relations with a lot of countries, and it puts a lot of other countries in danger, in my opinion. So hopefully you can sort that out as well. A little update there for you, a little bit more interesting, in my opinion, than just these culture wars going on at the moment where it's the left v right in America all the time. I mean, even here in Australia, we have people getting angry about rulings that America makes on their laws, on their people. We have people here in Australia having a cry about it, which is hilarious. I mean, it doesn't affect our lives, does it now? Not an American state. But anyway, I digress. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like. Leave a comment with your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think Russia's pretty much just going to kind of drop back? Is Biden going to be able to handle the Middle East? Let me know in the comments, and also subscribe if you do want to see future videos. Just below, click the button and you'll see all my videos as soon as they pop out. But thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one.